We are all complicated figures, containing the best and worst of what we can offer. Some people will know us as paragons, some as villains, and for most of us, somewhere in between. Rarely can a person be seen so drastically as both a villain and hero, but Alexander Vinokourov is one of these few. In his 16-year career, Vinokourov became a national hero, an Olympic gold medalist, a Grand Tour champion, and a monument winner. Along the way, he also served a blood doping suspension, bought a monument victory, and is still shrouded in an air of villainy. But before we assign that judgment, we have to go through the storylines to make our own decisions. It's Vino's second year in the pro peloton. He moved to France in 1997, and then in 1998 was signed to Casino AG2R. That rookie season resulted in him winning 6 different races, an early sign of promising talent. 1999 was the appearance on the world stage, where Vino won his biggest race yet, the week-long Criterion du Dauphiné, often viewed as a key tune-up race before the Tour, and one where you can show your talent as a GC rider, which Vino did, beating American Jonathan Vaughters, riding for the infamous USPS team. The next phase of Vinokourov's career was on Team Telekom, the best German team in the peloton, and home Jan Ullrich, who he rode for at that year's Tour de France. He also had an opportunity to race for himself on stage 18, which finished in Germany, a high-pressure stage for the team. After getting in the breakaway, it came down to Vinokourov and Salvatore Commesso on Seco, who won a stage last year, also out of a breakaway. They approached the final corner at a standstill, a game of cat and mouse. 2 men at the opening of their careers. Nothing but promise ahead of. It's Vinokourov who makes the move first, eager for the glory, and Commesso matches his pace, each with a different style. Vino, more upright, rigid. Commesso, lower over the bars, more swaying, more fluid, perhaps representative, in a way, of their upbringings and countries, the Italian versus Kazakhstani. It's Commesso who pulls ahead and wins the stage with a passionate celebration. And it's a rare missed opportunity for Vino. It was the Vuelta, though, where he had the chance to prove himself again. It's stage 18, the final kilometer. 2 riders are at the front, La Seca and Garcia Acosta, and they are now the ones doing a game of cat and mouse. But just 9 seconds behind is Vinokourov, trying to add another player to the standoff. Vino catches right as the sprint is launched, and it's now 3 wide, across the road, all of them giving each other space. As pure and honest a finish as you can possibly manage. Acosta Garcia does something you usually don't see. He gives up completely, and then so does Lyseca. And Vinokourov wins his first Grand Tour stage, and becomes the first Kazakhstani to ever do so. That same year, at the Sydney Olympics, Team Telekom swept the podium, with Jan Ullrich in first, Vino in second, and Kloden in third, a stamp of power and authority. There's occasionally discussion over this, if there are any talks during the race on who takes what place, But the Olympics, one has to assume, is big enough that money changing hands wouldn't tempt you, or maybe that they're so big that the price would be high enough to allow yourself to settle for second. We move forward 3 years. It's 2003, Vinokourov's 4th year with Team Telekom, and he's about to have a banner year for his career this far. It's Paris-Nice. After stage 2, Vino's compatriot and friend Andrei Kivilev was involved in a crash in the final 40 kilometers, one that led to a coma and a tragic death that evening. A talent taken from us far too soon, a family left devastated, a peloton forever changed, both emotionally and in the fact that it finally caused the UCI to step up and make helmets mandatory, even if it took them a few more years to enforce it everywhere. We were always there for each other. We raced for the first time together in 1986 and took the same road through the national team to the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. We turned pro at the same time. To lose one of my best friends is really bad. We're such a strong gang. The Kazakhs are a strong family. He will always be there with me. Stage 3 was neutralized, a somber parade in Andrei's memory, and stage 4 was a individual time trial. It was stage 5, the next mass start stage, where Vino rode with an extra set of legs. On Mount Faron, he unleashed an attack that was pure emotion, a move that would win him the stage and put him into yellow. I really gave everything for this victory, and today was for him and his family. I found the strength to continue the race, only for him, for his family, for his little boy. I'm satisfied today for myself and for them. I'm going to do everything to keep the jersey. And for that, I found a double strength, myself and his strength as well. Vino would go on to win Paris-Nice, but the banner season wasn't done yet. He'd go on to win Amstel Gold and the overall at the Tour de Suisse. It was in that year's Tour de France that truly made Vino into a Grand Tour contender. He'd finish on the final podium in 3rd place, the highlight being a 2nd place finish about d'Huez, at a tour that was far more dramatic than predicted. It's 2005, and we're back in Paris for the final stage of the Tour de France. Historically, this is when the sprinters get their grand finale on the Champs-Elysees. But for Vinokourov, he always sees opportunity. With just over 2 kilometers left, Vino attacks, followed by Laurent Brochard on AG2R. Working together, the duo pull out a few bike lengths, and coming out of the underpass, they're joined by FDJ's Bradley McGee. It's McGee that attacks the trio first. Vinokourov is able to respond to the attack. It's with 0.8 kilometers to go that he gets onto the back wheel, and as they make the last right-hander, it's clear that one of these 2 men will do the unthinkable and win from a breakaway in Paris. It's McGee that opens the sprint first, but it's Vinokourov who can come around and win an iconic victory at the Tour de France. For the 2006 season, Vinokourov signed with Liberty Seguros Worth, with the intent of being the team's full general classification leader, an opportunity that was never guaranteed when he was on Telekom. The year opened quietly for Vino, and then it got much louder, but not because of his results. On May 23rd, Spanish police arrested the team's director sportif, Manolo Saiz, in connection with Operation Puerto, an investigation into a Dr. Fuentes doping network. This was a moment that tore through cycling, one that will get its own full series, but for now, we need to focus on how it affected Vinokourov specifically. 2 days after the arrest, Liberty pulled its sponsorship from the team. And this is when being a national hero comes in handy. A group of companies from Vinokourov's home country put together a coalition to sponsor and save the team, which is now called Astana Worth. His plans for the tour were scattered, as 5 riders that were on the tour lineup were implicated in the investigation, leading to Astana's withdrawing from the race. And Vinokourov was never accused or implicated in this investigation. But it's never a good look to be involved with a team so deeply intertwined with doping like this. With the exclusion from the tour, it was the Vuelta a España that Vino ended up targeting that year. At this point, Worth also left the team, which is now called Astana. After 3 stage victories, including the final individual time trial, Vinokourov pulled on the gold jersey and won his first ever Grand Tour, cementing his ever-growing legacy. It was time to head back to France. After 2006, marred by Floyd Landis's positive doping results and the cloud of Operation Puerto still looming, there is a dark undertone to this year's tour, but still a sense of hope that things would be different this year. The tour got underway, and Vino was sitting in a good position until stage 5, where a high-speed crash caused him heavy damage, lost time, and by the time the Alps started, he was too far down the overall standings to have any hope at a top 5 overall finish. That didn't mean his tour was over. In fact, on stage 13, an individual time trial, he stormed to victory, a minute ahead of Cadel Evans in second. This was a remarkable increase in form. In fact, 2 days later, he went on to win stage 15, a high mountain stage, by almost a minute, and Vinokourov was looking like the contender he wanted to be. It's July 24th. Alexander Vinokourov has failed a doping test from the day of his time trial victory. His blood contained double the normal amount of red blood cells, a telltale sign of a blood transfusion being undertaken. The team was politely asked to leave the tour, and so they did. He was fired from Astana, and the team hotel was raided by the French police. Vinokourov denied any wrongdoing, suggesting that the crash may have caused blood anomalies. A few days later, the results of his B sample came in. Positive. His wins on stage 13 and 15 were removed. We should have seen this coming. After all, at the end of June, Vinokourov confirmed he was working with cyclists closest thing to a villain scientist, Dr. Michele Ferrari. He explained that he had not told anybody about Ferrari before because, quote, "I was scared of how people would react. You hear so many bad stories about him, but I have nothing to be ashamed of because I know how he works." He added that Ferrari was beneficial for him because, quote, "his training plans are the best. It's strange, but they remind me of the kind of work methods we used to use in the USSR. Oh, and earlier that year, Astana already suspended 2 other riders for doping-related reasons. Kazakhstan's Cycling Federation gave Vino an incredibly light 1-year suspension. This, A, pissed off the UCI, but B, meant he would be back in time for the Beijing Olympics. But following the threat of lawsuits, and perhaps starting to reach an older age of 34, Vinokourov officially retired. I don't want this sport anymore. I'm slamming the door and I'm leaving. I will prove I'm not guilty. I want to restore my honor and get the results of this test rescinded. He changed his mind. In 2009, following actually serving his ban that did go away when he retired, Vino returned to the peloton on Astana, even racing the Vuelta that year. It was the next year where Vinokourov truly became the man we know today. Liège-Bastogne-Liège. In the closing kilometers, it's Vinokourov and the Russian Alexander Vinokourov in the lead. On the final climb, Vino attacks, and Vinokourov can't follow, but he doesn't crack. The gap is opened, and then is just held there to the finish. Vinokourov crosses the line first, winning a classic, and is back to his elite form. It was the Giro d'Italia next for Vino, and again, he was stellar, wearing the overall pink leader's jersey for 5 days during the Grand Tour, finishing in 6th overall at the age of 37. Then, when the Tour de France rolled around, it was Vino who took over the role of super domestique, putting everything on the line to support team leader Alberto Contador, and was even able to take a stage himself on the 13th stage. It's the Tour de France again, stage 9, a day marred with crashes, one of which involved Vinokourov falling into a ditch, breaking his right femur, having to be carried out of it to the road by his teammates. A devastating moment. Later that day, he announced his retirement for a second time, and he had already planned for this to be his last tour, but not in this way. Then, during rehabilitation from the crash, he decided to race a Giro de Lombardia for one more time, then postponed his retirement until 2012 to ride for Astana in the Tour one last time, and the London Olympics were calling. December rolls around. A Swiss magazine runs a story about the 2010 Liège-Bastogne-Liège race, accusing Vinokourov of buying the victory from Kolobnev. This was based on a payment of 100,000 euros being sent from Vino's account to Kolobnev's the day after the race. They also published the emails exchanged between the two. From Kolobnev, quote, "You remember that, for me, it was a great chance. I do not know if I was right to do what I did. Here is a copy of all my bank information, and clear it from your mailbox, or my balls may be cut off." From Vino, quote, "You have done everything properly. Do not worry. As you say, the earth is round and God sees everything. So again, thank you. You, this year, you will win the championship finally, I believe. Do not worry about the agreement. I will do it." Of course, he denied the allegations, but the signs point to the story being completely accurate. To some, this is a huge violation to the sanctity of cycling. To some, cycling is also a business. It was a quiet year for Vinokourov, and another trip to the Tour de France didn't result in much. But it is an Olympic year. London, one of the greatest Olympics ever. We can't show you actual race footage, or this video will be taken down incredibly quick, but watch the highlights, and you will see Vinokourov turn back the clock completely, using his superior racecraft to pull off an upset win and take home the gold medal. But the story continues. Vinokourov then began managing Team Astana, and has since had controversies with sponsors that led to him being kicked off the team and then brought back 2 times. Under his leadership, Astana has won Grand Tours, gotten Mark Cavendish the Tour de France stage win record, and a host of other victories. And notably, and honestly importantly, is one of the most stable teams in the peloton. As long as Vino lives, Astana will exist. And when we come to the conclusion, there is no easy moral assignment to Vinokourov. He's a product of his era and upbringing, and there's some part of us that understands his mentality as we view it. At the end of the day, especially in that era, you needed to win at any cost. It wasn't crossing a line to him. It was just doing what you had to do. Paying Kolobnev 100,000 euros is just something you had to do. It was the price of business. And these tactics were ruthless, aggressive, and it made him a legend.